I've always thought of weight loss or just like burning energy in general
Mhm.
as this totally invisible, almost magical process.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like we always talk about burning calories, right?
Mhm.
And we talk about it like they just sort of vanish into thin air. We don't really think about where the actual physical mass goes.
It is a super common misconception, actually. We totally obsess over the energy part, but we completely ignore the physics of the matter itself.
Right. But looking at our source material today, the My-Nutri-Diary course article on the basics of metabolism, there's this fact right at the beginning that literally stopped me in my tracks.
I think I know exactly which one you're going to say.
It's wild. When you lose weight, when you actually burn fat,
Yeah.
you are quite literally exhaling it.
Yes, exactly.
Like every single time you pee and every single time you breathe out, you are expelling these shattered physical remnants of the food you ate and the fat you burned. You are basically breathing out the ghost of your lunch.
It's a stunning reality, isn't it? I mean, the sheer mechanics of it are just beautiful.
It really is.
Because, when your body breaks down food or stored fat to harvest energy, the ultimate waste products of that chemical reaction are just water and carbon dioxide.
Right, so just H2O and CO2.
Exactly. So your body filters the excess water through your kidneys to be excreted as urine, and it dumps the carbon dioxide into your bloodstream, sends it to your lungs, and you simply breathe it out into the room.
It's crazy to think about.
It's a physical, chemical exchange happening inside you every single second of your life.
It just completely shifts how you think about your physical self.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, that's exactly the mission of our deep dive today.
Right.
We are going to decode how your body acts as the ultimate chemical processing plant. We're breaking down this incredible guide that maps out exactly how we turn, like a sandwich, into literal functional energy and the actual physical building blocks of our cells.
It's going to be a fun one.
We're basically tearing down the mystery of metabolism.
And, to do that properly, we really need to start by redefining the word metabolism itself.
Oh, definitely.
Because when most people hear that word, they think of it like a thermostat dial. Someone has a fast metabolism or a slow one that just dictates their weight.
Guilty. I mean, I definitely use it that way all the time.
Most of us do. But biologically speaking, metabolism encompasses literally all of the cellular processes in the human body required for energy production and cell building.
So it's everything.
Right. It is the sum total of every chemical reaction keeping you alive. And it's fundamentally divided into two continuous opposing processes that run 24/7.
Okay.
Anabolism and catabolism.
Okay, anabolism and catabolism. Let's unpack those. Because the text describes anabolism as the buildup and catabolism as the breakdown.
Yeah.
But what are we actually building and breaking here?
So think of your body's molecules. Anabolism includes all the constructive processes. It takes tiny, simple building blocks and synthesizes them into highly complex molecules.
Like what kind of molecules?
We're talking about building muscle tissue, synthesizing vital hormones, repairing cell walls, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But to bond those small pieces together, it requires energy. You have to pay a toll to build the structure.
Right.
Then you have catabolism, which is the destructive process. It takes those large, complex molecules and violently dismantles them back into small pieces.
Okay.
And in the process, it releases the energy that was holding them together.
So I'm trying to picture this. If anabolism is like construction,
Sure.
you're taking raw materials like lumber and bricks and you have to pay workers, spend actual energy to build a skyscraper.
Yes, exactly. Constructing a complex building takes a massive input of energy and resources.
But then catabolism, wait, if you smash a building down, you don't get energy back.
Yeah.
You just get like a pile of rubble.
Right.
So how does destruction actually create energy?
Well, that's where the chemical reality differs from a physical building. In chemistry, the bonds holding atoms together physically contain energy. Think of them like highly compressed springs. When catabolism swings a wrecking ball into a large molecule and breaks those chemical bonds, the springs snap open and release their stored energy.
Oh, wow.
And then the body captures that released energy. So it's more like demolishing a building specifically to harvest a highly pressurized gas that was trapped inside the bricks.
Okay, I love that. Demolition for profit. You smash the complex molecule specifically to harvest the energy springs. That makes so much sense.
Yeah, it's a great way to look at it. So now that we understand the two sides of the coin, spending energy to build and breaking things down to harvest energy, we have to look at the raw materials.
The stuff we're actually eating.
Right. The source text outlines what is called intermediary metabolism, and we can visualize this entire process as a massive sorting facility.
Like an industrial recycling plant.
Perfect analogy. Imagine eating a meal is like dropping off a giant pile of unsorted recycling at this plant. Your body can't just use a slice of pizza as well, pizza. It has to painstakingly separate the raw materials into 3 distinct processing lines.
The macronutrients, right. Carbohydrates, fats, and proteins.
Exactly. So the plant manager immediately routes the carbohydrates down one processing line.
Carbs on line 1.
Right, where catabolic wrecking balls smash them into simpler units, primarily glucose.
Got it.
Then the fats get routed down a totally separate line, where they're broken down into glycerol and fatty acids.
Line 2 is fats.
And the proteins are shoved down a third line, dismantled into their fundamental units, which are amino acids.
So we literally have 3 different conveyor belts running simultaneously. Glucose, fatty acids, and amino acids.
Yes. And if you look at Figure 1 in the article, this is exactly what it maps out. And once they are separated and broken down into these base components, the body has a choice to make.
Like a fork in the road.
Right. It looks at the situation and asks, do we need to build or do we need power? If it chooses to build, it activates those anabolic processes.
Yeah, the expensive construction.
Exactly. The blue arrows in the diagram, it might take that glucose from the first conveyor belt and link it together into glycogen.
Which is how your muscles store energy for later, right?
Yes. Or it takes the fatty acids from the second belt and synthesizes them into vital hormones. Or it weaves those loose amino acids from the third belt into complex proteins for cell repair or muscle growth.
But all of that costs us energy to do.
It does. But if the body decides it doesn't need to build and instead needs power right now, it goes full demolition. It just keeps breaking them down.
Exactly. It continues down the red catabolic pathways. And the ultimate goal of all this teardown, the grand prize at the end of the line, is harvesting a specific molecule called ATP.
Right. ATP, adenosine triphosphate. I feel like I remember that from, high school biology.
It is the universal chemical energy currency of our cells. Every single thing your body does, from blinking your eyes to running a marathon, is paid for with ATP. Okay, so how do we actually extract this ATP?
Yeah.
Like if we follow, say, the carbohydrate processing line, the glucose, how do we get the energy out of it?
Wow.
Because the text makes a massive distinction here about oxygen. It says there are 2 completely different cellular engines for this.
Right.
Anaerobic, which means without oxygen,
Right.
and aerobic, which uses oxygen. Let's look at the anaerobic one first.
Okay, so this is where the actual biological machinery gets truly fascinating. The anaerobic process is called glycolysis.
Glycolysis. Okay.
And it happens right out in the open fluid of the cell, an area called the cytoplasm.
So not inside an organelle, just like floating out in the general cell juice.
Precisely. In glycolysis, the cell takes a 6-carbon molecule of glucose and basically snaps it in half, turning it into 2 3-carbon molecules called pyruvate.
Okay, snapping the compressed spring. So we get a huge burst of energy.
Well, you do, but not much.
Oh.
Because this engine doesn't use oxygen, it is a very blunt, highly inefficient process. Snapping that glucose in half anaerobically yields a net profit of only 2 ATP molecules.
2? Just 2 units of energy currency. That sounds incredibly weak.
It is weak regarding volume, but its primary advantage is speed.
Okay, so it's fast.
Very fast. If you need energy immediately, glycolysis kicks in instantly because it doesn't have to wait for your heart and lungs to deliver oxygen to the cell.
Right, that makes sense.
But there is a major catch. If oxygen remains unavailable, that pyruvate has nowhere to go. It cannot enter the more advanced engines.
So what happens to it?
So the cell converts it into lactate.
Lactate, like lactic acid. The deep burn you feel in your legs when you're sprinting up a hill.
Exactly. The text notes that lactate levels are a crucial biomarker for athletic performance.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, when lactate is building up in your blood, it is a glaring physiological signal that your body is relying heavily on this fast but highly inefficient zero oxygen pathway.
That makes total sense. I mean, you're sprinting, you literally can't breathe fast enough to get oxygen into the leg muscles, so your cells panic.
Yeah.
And they just start snapping glucose in half as fast as they can, which generates this massive lactate byproduct.
Exactly.
But what happens when you finally get your breath? Like when oxygen is finally available?
That changes everything. When oxygen is present, the body takes that pyruvate and ships it to a completely different location, the mitochondria.
Ah, the famous mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell.
Yes, and this aerobic process is exactly why they earned that title. Once inside the mitochondria, the aerobic engine turns on.
Okay.
The pyruvate is converted into a crucial molecule called acetyl-CoA.
Acetyl-CoA, got it.
And this acetyl-CoA is then fed into a highly complex spinning turbine called the citric acid cycle.
Also known as the Krebs cycle, right?
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah.
The citric acid cycle churns out 2 more ATP, but its real job is prepping the fuel for the final spectacular stage, which is cellular respiration.
Okay, and this is the big one.
Huge. This requires oxygen to pull electrons down a chemical chain, and when it does, it blasts out an additional 28 to 30 ATP molecules.
Wait, hang on. Let me make sure I'm actually understanding this math, because the difference is staggering.
It really is.
Without oxygen, out in the cell fluid, you just snap the glucose in half and get 2 units of ATP.
Right.
But with oxygen inside the mitochondria, you run it through these advanced cycles and you get 30 units.
That is the reality of our cellular engines, 2 ATP versus 30 ATP.
That is completely absurd. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
the anaerobic system, the one without oxygen, is basically like tossing a log on a quick, dirty campfire.
Okay, I like this.
You get a little bit of heat right away, but it's smoky and inefficient, the smoke being the lactate.
I like where this is going.
But the mitochondria, that is a highly regulated, high-tech nuclear reactor.
Yes.
You have to carefully prep the fuel into this acetyl-CoA stuff, and it absolutely demands a steady supply of oxygen coolant to run.
Mm-hmm.
But when you turn it on, the power output is just astronomically higher.
That perfectly encapsulates the difference. Operating without oxygen is bare survival mode. Operating with oxygen is peak thriving efficiency. It is why breathing isn't just about getting air. It is quite literally about fanning the flames of those mitochondrial reactors so you don't run out of energy and die.
Okay, but here is where I get a little stuck with this whole system.
Okay, where?
We talked about how the campfire glycolysis is the fast engine because it doesn't need oxygen.
Right.
But the text says it is still a multi-step chemical process to break down that glucose. So what happens when you need energy faster than fast?
Like what?
Like you touch a hot stove and your hand rips back in a millisecond. Or a weightlifter doing a massive explosive clean and jerk. Waiting for glucose to snap in half for 2 measly ATP seems like it would still be way too slow for an explosive movement.
You've hit on a critical gap in the system. It is too slow for instantaneous maximum effort demands.
I knew it.
Yeah. The free ATP currently floating in your muscle cells only lasts for about 1 to 2 seconds of intense activity. After that, it is completely gone.
Wait, 2 seconds.
Barely 2 seconds. And this is where the body's emergency backup battery comes into play. Creatine phosphate.
Creatine phosphate. Okay.
We discussed how cells use anabolism to build glycogen and body fat to store energy for the long term.
Right.
But accessing those takes minutes or hours. Creatine phosphate is your biological supercapacitor.
So how does it work? Like, where does it even come from?
Think about when you're resting. Sitting on the couch, breathing normally. Your mitochondrial nuclear reactors are still humming along, producing lots of ATP with all that oxygen.
Okay, yeah.
But you aren't using it. So your cells take that surplus ATP and use it to forcefully attach a phosphate group onto a molecule called creatine. They're basically charging a tiny battery.
So it's literally just storing the energy from the ATP into this creatine molecule.
Exactly. It becomes creatine phosphate. Then when that violent muscle contraction happens, heavy lift, the sprint off the blocks, and your cell instantly burns through its free ATP, the creatine phosphate steps in.
It just dumps the energy.
Yes. It immediately donates its phosphate back, regenerating the ATP right there on the spot in milliseconds. It bypasses the entire glucose breakdown process entirely.
That is brilliant. Okay, let me see if I can map out our energy storage then, kind of collaboratively with you, because we have 3 different layers here.
Let's hear it.
We have body fat. Body fat has to be like having your money tied up in real estate.
Oh, I like
It's incredibly valuable. It stores a massive amount of wealth. But if you need to buy a coffee right now, you can't pay with a house. It takes a long time to liquidate it.
Yes. Fat oxidation is a slow, complex aerobic process. It takes time to get the returns.
Right. Then you have glycogen, the stored carbohydrates in your muscles. That feels more like a checking account.
Okay.
It's not instantaneous. You have to go to an ATM or swipe a card, but it's relatively quick to access when you start jogging.
True. It is readily available, but still requires the multi-step glycolysis process to unlock.
Which makes creatine phosphate literal cash in your pocket. You don't have to wait for an ATM. You don't have to sell a house. You need energy this exact millisecond. You just slap the cash on the counter.
Cash in the pocket,
Yeah.
checking account, real estate. That perfectly captures the physiological hierarchy of energy storage.
It just clicks in my head that way.
Yeah, you use the cash first for split-second emergencies, you drain the checking account for a heavy workout, and you tap into the real estate for long-term endurance and survival.
I love how elegant this all is. But wait, I just realized something.
What's that?
We've been talking almost exclusively about the carbohydrate conveyor belt.
Right?
We followed glucose down into the cytoplasm campfire, then into the mitochondrial reactor.
Right, right.
What about the fats and the proteins? Do they have totally different engines?
This might be the most beautiful piece of the entire metabolic puzzle.
Really?
They don't have different engines. All of these complex processing lines eventually merge.
Oh.
They form an intricate, interconnected network called intermediary metabolism. And the absolute master key to this entire system is a molecule we actually already mentioned, acetyl-CoA.
Acetyl-CoA. Wait, that was the fuel prep. That was the molecule that goes right into the citric acid cycle inside the mitochondria.
Exactly. Acetyl-CoA functions as the universal adapter of the human body. The reason it's so vital is that it can be generated from all the macronutrients we consume.
Wait, seriously? All of them?
Yes. It doesn't matter if you eat a bowl of pasta, a pat of butter, or a chicken breast. Carbs, fats, and proteins are broken down on their separate lines, but they can all ultimately be converted into acetyl-CoA.
It's like a universal translator for food. So the mitochondria doesn't care if I eat fat or carbs as long as it gets acetyl-CoA.
It does not care at all. If we follow the catabolic pathways down, acetyl-CoA from any source can be fed into the reactor to generate those 30 ATP.
That's amazing.
But its flexibility goes even deeper, because intermediary metabolism is a two-way street. Acetyl-CoA can also be used as the starting block to build things up.
You mean anabolism. You can build with it.
Yes. You could theoretically break down a dietary fat into acetyl-CoA, and then the body could turn around and use that exact same acetyl-CoA as the foundation to build a completely different structure, like a hormone.
Wow.
This specific molecular flexibility is the exact reason human beings can survive and adapt to wildly different environments and diets.
Right.
The source text explicitly highlights how this explains the mechanics behind the low-carb, high-fat diet or the ketogenic diet.
Oh, because if you stop eating carbs, if you completely shut down that carbohydrate conveyor belt at the recycling plant, the body doesn't just stop working.
Not at all. It simply shifts its raw material sourcing. It says, okay, no glucose, we'll route more fats and proteins down the line, break them into acetyl-CoA, and keep the reactor spinning.
That's incredibly resilient.
Furthermore, if your body absolutely requires glucose for certain specialized cells like parts of your brain or your red blood cells, it doesn't need you to eat bread?
It doesn't.
No, it will literally manufacture its own glucose from non-carbohydrate sources using a biological process called gluconeogenesis.
Gluconeogenesis.
Yeah.
Creating new glucose out of spare parts.
I have to say, hearing all this biology laid out, it makes me want to push back pretty hard on the modern diet culture we see everywhere.
In what way?
Just think about the intense, sometimes vicious internet arguments about the one true human diet.
Oh, yeah.
You have people screaming that we are evolved to only eat meat or only plants, or that carbs are evil or fat is poison. Doesn't this biological reality, this universal adapter system, totally undermine all that rigid thinking?
I would say so, yes.
Our cells literally come equipped with machinery that lets us run on whatever macronutrient environment we happen to wander into.
It certainly challenges the dogma that human metabolism is fragile or restrictive.
Ugh.
From an evolutionary standpoint, this intermediary metabolism is a survival superpower.
That was a superpower.
Our ancestors didn't have apps to track their macros. They didn't have guaranteed access to specific ratios of food. They ate whatever they could forage or hunt.
If it was a successful hunt, they ran on fat and protein. If they gathered berries and tubers, they ran on carbohydrates. The body's ability to seamlessly switch fuel sources and to synthesize its own glucose via gluconeogenesis when carbs are scarce demonstrates an incredibly robust, adaptable system.
It is a masterpiece of engineering. So, to wrap up this deep dive, let's trace this journey one last time.
Let's do it.
You sit down, you eat a meal. Your body, acting as a massive processing plant, sorts the raw materials into carbohydrates, fats, and proteins.
Correct.
Then it decides whether to spend energy to build those materials into muscle and cells, which is anabolism, or demolish them to harvest energy, which is catabolism.
And if it chooses demolition, it is deeply dependent on oxygen. Without it, your cells resort to the fast but weak campfire of anaerobic glycolysis, snapping glucose in half to yield just 2 ATP and leaving lactate behind.
Right.
But with a deep breath of oxygen, those fuels enter the mitochondria, convert to acetyl-CoA, and blast through cellular respiration to yield a massive 30 ATP.
And the harmless waste products of all this, water and carbon dioxide, filtered out to your kidneys and your lungs, which you just breathe away.
Exactly. Well, acetyl-CoA sits at the center of the whole operation, ensuring that whether you are running on butter or bread, the engines never stop.
And you always have that emergency cash in your pocket, creatine phosphate, ready to fund a sudden sprint.
For you listening, understanding this metabolic blueprint is deeply empowering. It means you don't have to view your nutrition as magic or feel chained to rigid rules.
Absolutely not.
It is an incredibly adaptable, highly logical system. It responds directly to the oxygen you breathe, the physical demands you place upon your muscles, and the fuels you provide.
A machine perfected over millions of years. Which leaves me with a final thought for you to ponder as you go about your day. We just learned that our bodies are engineered with these ancient, highly sophisticated backup systems like intermediary metabolism and gluconeogenesis. Systems specifically designed to seamlessly switch fuel sources and create their own energy when carbohydrates aren't around. It is a brilliant survival mechanism.
It really is.
But it makes you wonder. In our modern world, where so many of us are constantly grazing on easily accessible carbohydrates from morning till night, never letting the system run dry,
Oh, wow.
are we letting a massive, highly evolved part of our internal machinery just sit there gathering dust?
That is a profound question. It really highlights the friction between our evolutionary biology and our modern food environment.
Something to think about the next time you breathe out.